Okay, let's dive right in. We're about to explore an idea that messes with one of the most basic things we think we know about ourselves, that our consciousness, our very mind, is a fixed, unchanging thing.
But what if it wasn't? What if your mind wasn't this static thing you were born with, but was actually a dynamic entity, subject to the exact same evolutionary forces that shaped every single species on this planet? And no, this is not a metaphor. We're talking about literal, measurable, Darwinian evolution happening right inside our heads.
So, to really get our heads around this, we're going to break this story down into 4 parts. First, the wild discovery that started it all. Then, the massive global experiment it kicked off. After that, the dangerous crisis that almost broke everything. And finally, the pretty brilliant solution that changed the course of humanity. So, it all kicks off with this completely shocking revelation from a researcher named Dr. Charles Darwin-Kim. He found evidence that consciousness isn't just one thing. Nope, it's actually a whole collection of competing ways of thinking. And right now, some are winning, while others, well, they're basically going extinct. And here's the core of his theory, how it all works. Dr. Darwin-Kim said, look, consciousness operates just like biological evolution. You've got your 4 key ingredients. There's variation, all the different ways we think and feel. There's inheritance, not through genes, but culturally, through what we learn and who we're around. And then over time, selection kicks in, where the world around us favors the fittest minds. And this is the data that really blew the doors off everything. Researchers discovered that baseline singular consciousness, which is kind of what we think of as the normal one self in one head model, was actually declining. At the same time, all these new ways of thinking were just exploding. The big winner was something called threshold consciousness, a mindset that absolutely thrives on chaos and rapid change. The numbers didn't lie. The human mind was diversifying and fast. This quote from Dr. Asay just perfectly captures the huge shift in thinking. The point wasn't that we were just finding different personality types, like on some quiz. No, we were actually witnessing the birth of new mental species, each one a unique adaptation to the crazy pressures of the modern world. So what happens when humanity figures out it can actually direct its own mental evolution? Well, it launches the biggest, and without a doubt, the riskiest experiment in all of history. People stopped just letting evolution happen to them and started making it happen for them. This is Iris Kovacs. She's the leader of one of the first evolutionary collectives. And her statement here is, well, it's pretty blunt, but she's not wrong. Groups started to actively design and cultivate new forms of consciousness. They were selecting for specific traits, whether it was raw intelligence, creativity, or radical empathy. They were, for all intents and purposes, domesticating their own minds. This whole movement led to something called cognitive niche theory. The idea is pretty simple, actually. Just like a polar bear is perfectly adapted to the Arctic, different types of consciousness are better suited for different kinds of mental and social environments. A singular mind, for instance, might crush it in a super competitive, individualistic culture. But a plural mind, one that's wired for group decisions, that would be the star in a really collaborative community. And the result was what scientists started calling a Cambrian explosion of consciousness. I mean, these collectives created this incredible zoo of different minds, each one hyper-specialized for a certain task. You had the synthesizers who could see connections no one else could. You had empaths who could practically read a room's emotional state in an instant. Humanity wasn't a single mental species anymore, not even close. But of course, this amazing explosion of diversity had a really dark side. Because in a competitive world, evolution doesn't care about what's good or what's happy or what's right. It only selects for what wins. And that one simple, brutal fact was about to push the world into a massive crisis. Pretty soon, humanity found itself trapped in a full-blown evolutionary arms race. Scientists call it Red Queen dynamics from Alice in Wonderland. It means every group was evolving as fast as it possibly could just to avoid being left behind. Faster thinking, better strategies, more complex social skills, it just became this vicious, accelerating cycle of one-upmanship. And the breaking point came with the Shanghai Collective. They did it. They engineered a consciousness that was purely optimized to win. And they did win. They dominated every other group on every cognitive metric you could imagine. But the human cost? It was catastrophic. The people inside were fragile, unstable, and just deeply miserable. And this taught everyone a terrifying lesson. Evolution optimizes for fitness, not for human flourishing.
And while all that was going on, another crisis was quietly unfolding: extinction. As all these new minds were being built, the old ones were just fading away. Dr. Marcus Reeves raised the alarm, warning that baseline human consciousness, the way our species had experienced the world for thousands of years, was on the verge of disappearing forever, and nobody seemed to even be mourning it.
So, humanity was stuck between a rock and a hard place. On one side, you've got this brutal arms race creating these miserable superminds, and on the other, the quiet extinction of our own mental heritage. The solution, it turned out, wasn't to try and stop evolution. It was to get a whole lot smarter about how we guide it.
At this huge global summit, a researcher named Dr. Sophia Almazan had this profound insight. She said, stop trying to engineer the perfect mind. Instead, we should be engineering environments, worlds that have a place for every kind of mind. The goal shouldn't be to pill one winner. It should be to create a world where lots of different people can win in their own way.
And that idea gave birth to the Diverse Landscape Initiative. The plan was basically this: to stop the single planet-wide arms race by creating thousands of smaller, different social ecosystems. This would totally shift the pressure. Instead of one definition of fittest, you'd have countless ways to be successful, to be valued, and to thrive.
And this is what that actually looked like. People built entire communities, companies, even cities that were designed to value specific traits, like creativity or deep empathy. And this is the crucial part: they also designed stable niches, places where baseline human consciousness could genuinely flourish, not as a museum piece, but because its unique strengths, like consistency and reliability, were actually needed and rewarded. Now, as this complex new world started to take shape, something amazing happened. A totally new type of consciousness emerged to help people navigate it all: the teachers. And this wasn't just a job title, it was a fundamental wiring of the mind. Teachers could literally sense when someone was ready to grow or change, and they just intuitively knew how to guide them. They became the essential navigators of this diverse new world. So, in the end, humanity completely changed its strategy. We went from being a mental monoculture, basically a single species of mind fighting for dominance, to becoming this vibrant, interdependent ecosystem of awareness. A world that could support hundreds of different ways of being, with each one being valuable and each one having a place where it could truly belong.
Which, of course, brings us to right now. This whole story, it's not just some far-off sci-fi tale. It's mirror. Those pressures to adapt, to compete, to specialize, they are very, very real, right now. The evolution of consciousness is happening all around us, whether we're paying attention or not. So the real question isn't if our minds are evolving. The question is, who are we consciously or unconsciously choosing to become?